Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another very special edition of the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans gather to talk about the best and worst of the horror genre. I am joined today by a wonderful guest, Lysander Wong, the director of Foreign Bodies, one of the short films that we saw screened at Glasgow FrightFest this year. Lysander, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. As we were talking before we hit record, didn't get to be at Fright Fest Glasgow in person, so you were very kind to get in touch and let us catch the movie in the comfort of my own home. And I wanted to get together and talk to you a little bit about it. So, let's talk about Foreign Bodies to begin with, shall we? It is an animated movie, another great skill in itself. Um, can you maybe tell our audience listening, without any spoilers, what's the premise of the movie?
The, well, while I was making this film, the entire time my tutors were kind of hounding me about the story. I just kept telling them that it was about bugs. And that was it. So I guess it's about the film is about bugs, and at its core it's about the horror of having a body and existence. So
Yeah,
that's my
we're touching on some of the main touchstones here of the most disturbing forms of horror. You've got body horror, the uncomfortableness within your own skin and changes to a person's own body, which, you know, thankfully most of us in our day-to-day lives don't go through such extreme body horror as the character in your film. And then, of course, mainstay of horror, insects and creepy crawlies. No one likes them all up in your business.
Mhm.
And you've done it in like a beautiful animated style as well. Um, so you
Um,
mentioned your shooters. Are you a film or animation student right now?
yeah, so this film I finished it as my graduation film from my master's degree. So recent that was in summer of 2025.
Uh,
So recently graduated.
and you've had your graduation now. You've had your certificate and your hat ceremony.
Yeah.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
on finishing your masters. Impressive work. Very impressive work. And I take it, I mean, Foreign Bodies definitely an animation coded in horror and things that make us uncomfortable. How about your other projects that you've worked on over the time? Are you a horror person, or is this just this one film that has tempted you into the genre?
I think like personally I think I'm very into horror, and a lot of my work I do like to work around themes of horror. But our master's, it was a 2-year degree, and the first year, I don't think my tutors had any idea I was interested in exploring that kind of aspect. So when I came into the second year and I started making films and exploring all these more horror elements, they were all really surprised. And it was kind of unexpected for them because I think you can tell by the film I like to work in a lot of colorful
Hmm.
aspects. And so I think it kind of came out of nowhere that I was like, hey, I love color and really bright, cheerful things, but I also want to make a horror film. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
And let's go a little bit further into the past then. So you say you're a horror fan. Is there anything that maybe can you pinpoint a time when that became? Was it something when you were very young? I know spoilers for anyone listening to audio only. If you can't tell from our voices, Sandra is much younger than I am. She's a proper young person, everybody. So get ready for the future. But is there anything that when you were even younger, Lysander, that maybe got you into the horror genre as a fan before you were even a filmmaker?
Um it w it was definitely not while I was extremely young. I think as a kid, I was very much terrified of any kind of horror related media. Um, but I think I was more, especially visual media. I read a lot as a kid, and I think when I was early teens, I started getting to a lot of horror books. And that's sort of what started me into the genre, and then at some point I discovered Junji Ito and like all the horror manga
Hmm.
out there. And that's like the kind of horror that like I love like gore and like body horror. um which is like what I was working on in the film. And so like I think that element of horror like sort of drew me in because it's like sort of
Yeah,
it doesn't stress me out as much. I think it's like great and it's like hilarious. And so it's like um
Junji Ito is such a great sort of, well, one, a gateway into horror, but like he produces such disturbing visuals and quite like haunting and affecting stories in his horror work. But then as we know, and from some of his non-horror work, he's just a guy who loves his cat.
yeah. Um, yeah,
So yeah,
I love like watching him like seeing interviews of him that's just like out and about. Because it's
and
yeah.
so definitely, so I love these stories. Obviously, your parents did something very well. You grew up like lots of people of my generation was, yeah, I got this video that my mom let me rent out of the video store, and it was terrifying. I was 8 years old, whereas a reader, so it was horror books and stories that got you into these things first. So obviously Junji Ito, lots of sort of graphic novel and sort of manga adaptations. How about anything in prose? Any writers that really got under your skin growing up?
I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific writer. I think I always do like Shirley Jackson a lot.
Hmm.
Although yeah, like not a lot of these I think like horror literature is different in a way because it's less about like the shock value or
Yeah,
like terrifying the reader like out front, but it's more about like dread and like
yeah. I
um
mean, Shelley Jackson, another great
yeah.
example. Some wonderful horror stories that have been adapted into many other mediums as well, and some of her short stories are even the ones that aren't overtly horror, like The Lottery is one that sticks with you, right? Like, yeah, great stuff. Amazing. So then, when in your life did you decide that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
Um it was later on I think. So I went to undergrad in a non-art related field.
Okay.
And then that was also during the like around the pandemic area time. Um, and I think like when I graduated from that, I was like, oh, I don't think I can. Like, it's partially because like, I guess like we were all kind of like depressed during like the pandemic time, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can like work in this field for the rest of my life. And so I kind of had like a quarter life crisis while I was deciding like, oh, what should I do next? Um, but I luckily had the chance to take one like animation class during my undergrad that
Mhm.
was just for fun. At some point I was like, oh, maybe this this could be like a path that I could try pursuing. And so I applied to a bunch of like animation masters, got into one, and that's when I think like I started taking filmmaking seriously.
Nice.
And so I think like as an animator, like I don't really watch that many films and I'm like been trying to fix that because I think that's like important lessons to like learn about film language and
Yeah.
like storytelling.
Well, we don't gatekeep around here. You're allowed to watch as many or as few films as you wish because you're producing some beautiful looking work for this project in foreign bodies. I know when you're an independent filmmaker, and particularly when you're a student, you wear a lot of hats on your own. I introduced you as director, but what other jobs did you take on the film? Is it a solo project? Did you work with lots of other people on your course? Do you get your hands on the animation as well?
Yeah, so it kind of was mostly a solo thing where I did basically the majority of the film. And we were able to we had like contacts with a few music schools. So I had somebody work on the sound and someone else work on the music. But everything else was just by myself.
Yeah.
And like with like the support with of like my classmates and stuff and tutors of course. But
Oh, very, very exciting. And like, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we're in an audio media here, so we're gonna have to use the theater of the mind to describe
Right.
the animation style that you developed here. Very, very brightly colored. It has a very sort of physical feel to it. It's almost got like a craft design thing. They look like
Mm.
physical figures made out of, don't want to say paper, but like, it's like, it is like a physical form that you can imagine you having. Like, how did you generate that? Did you generate that digitally, or do you have these physical figures that you're moving around and animating in your studio?
Yeah, everything was like physical. And well, you said you don't want to mention paper, but everything was made out of
It is
paper.
paper.
Yeah.
What I meant was I didn't want to be like, oh, it's paper. You go, Andy, it's card. Get it right. But
But yeah, it's like everything's paper. But like paper sort of like isn't exactly very structurally sound, so it was very, I guess like you needed a light touch to work with it, and everything kind of like disintegrated after working with it for
yeah,
too
because you're
long.
obviously moving these frame by frame, and you know, not to spoil things, but unfortunately, there are some rips that are going to occur to this character, right? Did you ever have any situations where you ripped a little too far or the wrong place? I'm like, I have to make this again.
There are definitely times where it's like, oh no, I've like messed up, I can't go back. But like with animation, it's like you that's the way the medium works. With stop motion animation specifically, it's like you just have to go along with like any mistakes or like errors that you've made and like work around that. So definitely a lot of like, oh no, like am I doing this right? But like watching it back, you have to just go like improvise and
Yeah.
make it work.
And we're not talking a feature length film. We are a short movie, but I can imagine the time spent in animating this was lengthy, right? You worked on it a long time. What is your I don't expect you to do the maths if you haven't done this out, but like, what is your work effort for every like minute of film there in terms of, not even the preparation, the just moving the figures on screen frame by frame.
Uh, I
A long time.
a long time. I was under because it was like our graduation project. I was under a time crunch. So it was lots of late evenings working on this film. Um but I would say I spent it's like a 3.5 minute long film, and I spent maybe 3.5 months just on the animation. 3 months? 3 months just on the
A
animation.
month a minute. This is hard work. And you're a team of
Yeah.
one as well. Well, a team of one plus, support from your fellow students. I imagine that's part of the course, right? You help each other out with your projects.
Yeah, yeah. So it was I was sharing we like for the stop motion animators, we sort of had this basement studio where there's like no lighting to make sure that everything is consistent. And I was sharing it with one of my classmates, Izzy. And we were just like in this tiny little box, dim box together, like giving each other emotional support during the whole time because um yeah, if you were alone and working on this, it would be kind
Yeah,
of
I can imagine, especially doing it in like a dark basement with no lighting to work with. Saying, "Oh, do you remember the sky? I like you're on a deadline. You've got to go.
no, I
Looking at the sky now. You got to get this finished."
yeah. Um
So, how was it? How did you feel when you got the news that it had been accepted into the Fright Fest Glasgow short film showcase?
it was really unexpected. I think, especially since well, when you applied, you sort of applied to Fright Fest as a whole, and I was like, oh, it's not gonna happen until like August, September, August in London,
Yeah.
and so like I wasn't like thinking much about it, and like it came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, like this is yeah, it was really unexpected, but like very nice to hear. I
Oh,
wasn't
that
sure if yeah, I wasn't sure if my film was I don't know like like I just didn't know what to expect coming
yeah.
out. of like in terms of like festival runs. And so it's been really nice like to see it get around to places.
Oh, that's nice. And have you had it? Has it screened anywhere else yet? That
Yeah, it's been screening at like a few different festivals, some mostly animation festivals, but it's been doing well at some genre festivals too. So, um, which is
oh,
really
that's
nice.
nice. And what has the audience reaction been like so far? Have you heard from many people?
Um, I'm trying to think. I think sometimes you'll have a really like dramatic reaction. And sometimes it's like the audience wouldn't like physically react as much, but like you'll still like have people come up to you afterwards and be like, "Oh, it was really good." So it's like I think it's a varied bunch depending on like
Yeah,
who.
I think also that is a huge, not just, I mean, festival audiences may be a little bit more reactive, but UK audiences in general, we're a country where people will sit quietly in a film and, and take it in.
Mm,
You're not going to get the our transatlantic cousins who are a little bit more in tune with their emotions, who will give you a physical reaction in the cinema as they watch it along, and it's a far more of a community watch. But yeah, it's
mm.
so nice to hear that people will come up to you afterwards and say they enjoyed it. If I haven't said it to you already, I enjoyed it. It was great. Like, and again, huge respect for the work that goes into animation, particularly people still making animation that you, regardless of how far AI comes along, you can't replicate that with the same
Mm,
weight and feel to it. And I think part of the magic of film is the effort that goes into making it and hearing, and knowing the time that you spent building these figures, designing them and putting it together. Yeah, really, really fun. Um, so the future for let's talk about the future for foreign bodies first.
mm.
Don't break any contracts on my account, but any future plans, more festivals that you're going for, plans for future releases online or anywhere else?
So definitely more festivals, upcoming festivals. If you're in the UK and this comes out before the start of May, it's going to be in Edinburgh. So if you want to see it,
Yeah,
you're, yeah,
whereabouts in Edinburgh? If
it's
not, I
at
can.
Sci-Fi. I don't know how
Okay,
to
okay.
pronounce it. SI-FAN. Um, at the start of May, and then a few more festivals like across Europe mostly, in the upcoming months. And I'm still like waiting back on others. But if you've yeah, if you follow me on Instagram or something, you'll
Yep.
probably like I'll probably
Good
update.
good
Yeah.
time to get that in there. Social media is not what it used to be. Where can people find you on Instagram, Lysander?
I'm at Lysander_Wong at Instagram.
Right.
Um, so
Get you followed. 3.5 minutes of your time, and you will not be disappointed. You'll see a nice bit of beautifully animated, I can call it paper, body horror. Um, yeah, great
um,
stuff.
yeah,
Um,
and then no no plans for like after the festival run yet, but
yeah, you can decide
well,
that at
yeah.
the time. And so that's the future for the film. How about for you, a graduate in filmmaking with a specialism in animation? What's next for you?
So I am currently working on my next film, which hopefully will get done around the summer, but it's not a horror film,
It's okay. You're
unfortunately.
still allowed to promote it. Get it out there.
Um, yeah, it's like it's more of like a reflection of like my youth. I grew up in Hong Kong, and so it's like exploration of like Hong Kong crafts. So also still like very craft focused animation with like paper and like different mediums, but more, yeah, more of like a self-reflective journey and less of like a narrative horror.
Brilliant. We're here for it. So if people are following you, they can catch both, whether it's horror or a bit of reflection. And I think really great for people to see the arts and the inspirations that other people grow up with from around the world as well. So great stuff. We shall look forward to it. Lysander, I have one final question for you before I let you go on and get on with the rest of your day. Now, you mentioned that you want to watch more movies and more horror films, so no pressure. You don't have to have a perfect answer, but now that you have released a horror short movie, the pressure's going to be on you from your friends, I imagine, if not from me. We're doing a podcast called the Horror Hangout, so if you were faced with your own horror hangout, your friends are coming around to you and they're saying, Lysander, we're going to do a horror movie night. We're coming to your house. And because you are now a horror filmmaker officially, it's on your IMDb and everything, we want you to choose the movie. What are you going to put on for everybody?
Um, I I'm not a big feature film watcher, but I am a avid consumer of shorts.
You can
And
choose a
so
short film for them. Means you can say, right, now I want the rest of my evening back. Go home. I've put a short movie on for you.
There's one short that I saw recently that's stuck in my mind, and I think it's doing its festival run, so maybe other people will be able to catch it somewhere or like once it comes out. But it's a French film called God is Shy, and it's
Oh,
not
okay.
exactly like it's not horror like outright horror, um, but it's sort of like the existential horror that I'm really into. But highly recommend the animation's like amazing and it's like just uncanny enough to like make everything like make the world really weird and I think it like tells a really captivating story
Oh,
for yeah.
that sounds fantastic. It is going straight on my watch list. And if I can leave you with anything, Lysander, that someone that came along and said, "Oh, I haven't seen so many films. I definitely want to watch more." I have done close to 500 episodes of a horror podcast, and you've given me something that I haven't seen before. So I'm going to take that away and watch it. Thank you so much. Um, all that is left for me to say is one, thank you, Lysander, for coming to join me for a little chat about foreign bodies today. But I will also thank everyone else who has listened in. Go and check out Foreign Bodies, see if it's screening anywhere near you. Follow Lysander for where it's going to be available online in the future. That's where you're going to catch the news. Thank you to our old mate Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks for the folks over at Acast for hosting the show. And we will see you all again next time. Bye for now.